This episode of Warp 5 is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek FM at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the non-profit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode or any other, please join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's B-A-B-E-L, into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, this is Gary Graham, Ambassador Saval in Star Trek. You're listening to Warp 5.
How we doing, Trip? Ready when you are. Prepare for warp.
Course laid in, sir. Request permission to get underway. Let's go.
Welcome, Boomers, to another episode of Warp 5, Trek FM's dedicated Enterprise podcast. I am your host, Brandi Jackola, and with me, as always, is Brandon-Shea Mutala. Brandon, how are you today?
I'm not feeling very good. I got this really bad headache here. I don't know, there's like worms in my brain or something.
You've been exposed to the reptilians, haven't you?
Yes,
If only you weren't such a good linguist, Brandon.
I am an awesome linguist, which means I'm good at decoding math problems.
Yeah, apparently. Well, I thought the codes were linguistic, but in any case, that's beside the point. We'll talk about that later. And also joining us is our other co-host who's always with us, Patrick Devlin. Patrick, welcome. How are you?
Better than Brandon. I don't have worms.
Yeah. Do we need to get you wormed like a beagle?
Well, I need to leave them in for a bit, too, because they're also... The other worms that I have are making me slim down a little bit. I'm glad you noticed.
Yeah.
I just got worms everywhere.
And that's so awesome. Worms are the future. They truly are. Oh, my goodness. So we're off to a great start tonight with our part 6 of our 6-part Season 3 retrospective. And tonight we're going to be covering 4 episodes, the last 4 episodes of Season 3, which are E Squared, The Council, Countdown, and 0 Hour, which I did watch all in one go on my first rewatch, and then rewatched them again over the weekend.
Nice. I had to watch them over the past week. I watched like one, and then like another night, and then another night I watched one, and I couldn't do it in one go. I got kids.
Well, of course. You see, I don't. I'm childless and have so much time on my hands. Mm-hmm. Okay, the time on my hands is not true, but I am without child, so I don't have that demand upon me. But yeah, so we are going to cover these last 4 episodes, and then that will be the end of Season 3.
Finito!
Boo!
Well, we're going to have one more visit. We're going to have Michael Wong come back with his co-host, Emily Cutts, I can't remember her last name, and she's the co-host on Strange New Worlds, and they're going to come on, and we're going to have a discussion about the Xindi as a race, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun, so watch for that.
That's going to be exciting.
Episode 136 of Warp 5.
Coming up in just a few weeks. So, okay, let's get into it. E Squared. How do we feel about E Squared?
I like the episode. Again, I like pretty much every episode of this series, of this season. I do like that we see kind of different things going on with the way they're going to go about trying to find this weapon for the last time. Like, this is it. It's getting to the point where we have to do something, you know? And we're getting really close to the end of the season, and we really haven't found the final weapon yet. So, like, on a first watch, it's a little different on a second watch, but on a first watch, you start getting nervous that they might not actually find this weapon in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've got this weird isolated episode with this time travel story, which the neat thing about this episode for me is if you look back and when you go back on a rewatch, it's actually kind of been seeded throughout the show, throughout the season, because there's a couple of times when they ask Archer, they're like, how many Federation ships are there? We've seen other Federation ships in here. And you could almost think that it's this duplicate Enterprise that's been traveling around the Expanse that they've seen at previous points. So I think that's kind of an interesting little nugget that you can enjoy a little bit more on a rewatch.
Yeah, I agree. And that was even more prevalent and obvious to me on my second rewatch, which even though it had only been probably about 4 weeks since I'd seen it in my first rewatch, it was like, oh yeah, people kept asking them, the Xindi kept asking them how many ships are in the Expanse, and why wouldn't they believe it was just the one? Now we know, because they kept seeing the future Enterprise wandering around, trying to find that weapon and stop it and failing.
Yeah, I also like how the you end up with like Trip's son is the captain now. Trip and T'Pol's son are the captain of this new ship of the old Enterprise. But yeah. I love the maneuver where they kind of mirror each other, so that when they attack, they didn't realize they were going to break into two separate ships during that battle. That was pretty cool. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot going on, and it's really just to get to the other side, and they're basically told if you try, you're going to fail, and you're going to go back in time, and then we're going to fail again at stopping the first weapon, and then we're going to fail again at stopping you from going through to stop the major weapon.
Yeah, and then, of course, there's the whole situation where Lorian gets really upset that Archer isn't getting on board with the implementation of the engine modification to get through the wormhole safely. And so Lorian just decides, okay, screw this. We're going to steal those plasma injectors and then go ourselves. It's just like, okay, so how quickly did that degenerate into Lorian saying, no, we're doing this my way or we're not doing it anyway? And I found that to be interesting because, of course, Lorian wasn't brought up in the extreme Vulcan ideology. I shouldn't say extreme. It's just basic Vulcan ideology of suppressing your emotions. And so he can be logical, but he is sometimes, should I say, I don't want to say overwhelmed by emotions, but he allows his emotions to guide his actions when he maybe should stop and think about it for a minute. Because I thought, really, these are your ancestors, and why are you doing this? And so I found that really just surprising in a good way, because I thought, oh, you better not do this because you're going to lose, man. You're up against the pros here.
Well, I like how at the end of the episode he actually answers why he did it. It's because he's so obsessed with keeping the promise he made to Archer that he would accomplish the mission and stop the weapon. You know, that guided him. He also said at one point in the episode that he allows his emotion to guide his logic, which is a very un-Vulcan thing to do. But I like those two lines in the show.
Yeah. And, well, the interesting thing is, though, is that, yes, you made a promise to stop this weapon, but at what point are you not honoring that promise by actually attacking the ship, which is captained by the man to whom you made that promise?
Yeah, it seemed like an odd decision that, especially when he would have been, taught by Archer and he would have been taught by T'Pol, his mom. It seems like a weird justification for what he did and a weird decision for a character who had those people as his role models. Seems like an odd decision that he would make.
Yeah, but haven't we seen that his father would be more rash to do something like that?
But his father was extremely loyal to Archer as well.
True.
So there would have been that respect, that level of respect. And while I understand that they've been waiting 117 years for this to come to be again, it seemed like an odd decision for Lorian to make.
Yeah, it borders on obsession.
Mm-hmm.
an obsessive hero worship. When you're actually trying to disable your hero in order to continue your hero worship and the promise you made to your hero, something is wrong there. Mm-hmm. Something is very wrong. And he realizes that in the end, that what he has done is not the way to solve this situation. Mm-hmm. And so they decide, I mean, after Archer throws him in the brig and he cools off a bit, they have basically a conversation and decide, okay, let's work together and we can do this. And interestingly, and I didn't think that this would happen, how did you feel about T'Pol going over to meet her older self?
Yeah, that's a little strange because you would think, like, I don't know. I guess I see it differently than the show is portraying it, I guess, because they're not really typical Vulcans at this point. They're not our regular Vulcans. Because at that point, remember, they didn't believe in time travel or anything like that. She was just starting to believe, but Vulcans as a society don't. So I guess they didn't really worry about the contamination there. But that would definitely contaminate the timelines. But I guess at this point, we've already contaminated them, so what does it matter?
Yeah, because if they don't go back in time, then they're going to contaminate the timeline by not going back in time and making them, right? So,
yeah, well, see, and that's the thing. If they travel through the wormhole successfully and are able to get to the other side for their meeting with Degra, then Enterprise future would cease to exist because that future now never happens.
Mm-hmm. Right, which is what we see at the end, and they kind of debate it for a minute. But it's really paradoxical because if they don't go back in time, then they're never there to tell them not to go back in time in the first place.
Right.
You know, so
exactly.
So then they would have reverted back to making the mistake and going back in time, and then telling themselves that they couldn't. And if they fix it, that erases the fact that they told. It gets really confusing. So they just disappear and poof out of existence, which sucks because I kind of like the characters, but.
Yeah, I liked the characters as well, and it's wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey. Mm-hmm. It's very Doctor Who thing. But I was actually surprised that T'Pol went to visit her older self, because it's not logical.
So, really? I don't know.
I don't feel like it's logical because why would she want to know what that future would be? Because if they succeed, that future won't exist. So it's an interesting conundrum. But then again, she has been more emotional because of the Trillium addiction.
Yes, she has. And it's really close to the surface in this episode. Her emotions are really close to the surface.
Well, for these last 4 episodes, they're very close to the surface. Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting. I thought she'd chicken out more than anything. But nope, she went over there. And Old T'Pol, I don't want to call her Old T'Pol, Elder T'Pol, says something to her, that Trip can be an outlet for those emotions and to let him help her. And I wish that they had followed that particular storyline in the rest of the series. But we'll get to that when we start a season 4 retrospective, because I just feel like, maybe you're just being stubborn, but man, there was no reason for you to push Trip away. You could have helped each other. It's very frustrating for me.
Mm-hmm. It's not very Vulcan to do that, though, so it kind of makes sense that she's very apprehensive, is a nice way to put it, on doing that.
Well, she's going to have these emotions for the rest of her life, like Phlox says in this episode, right?
Well, and Elder T'Pol tells her the same thing. Mm-hmm. Is that she'll never fully be rid of the emotions.
Right.
And instead of trying to regain that control that she's never going to completely have again, why not have a better outlet for that than to have emotional outbursts that may affect her duties and may affect her relationships? Mm. So I just feel like she was so determined to do it the Vulcan way that she passed up what could have been a really amazing opportunity to have a deeper relationship with Trip.
Right. Now, one thing you mentioned earlier, Patrick, that I wanted to talk about was you said you liked that when the ship was hidden underneath it and whatnot.
Yeah.
I call foul on that because they cheated on that.
Really?
Yes, because right before the reveal, they show a shot from the front, and you don't see the other ship underneath it. Like, it's a direct front shot.
Right, I never caught that.
I rewound it because I'm like, wait a minute. And watched it again, and I'm like, okay, they cheated. So, I don't know.
Fair enough. I still like it.
Yeah. It's like when that two-parter in season 4 when they're like upside down and Trip's trying to go from the one to the other.
Yeah, they're sharing a warp field.
There were some interesting things too here when they were talking about the relationships that were built and like the families that happen and stuff. And Memory Alpha has kind of determined here. So when it says Phlox and Amanda had 9 children, like Memory Alpha kind of lists it that it's Amanda Cole, which is that Mako.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That works.
And then Reed didn't end up with anybody, so he hits on that blonde right away.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad for that. And it got really awkward. And so Hoshi and Travis are just like, we gotta go. We're on duty really soon. Thanks, bye.
Yeah, the old, I left my blow dryer on. I gotta...
Yeah. Oh no, my curling iron's still hot. I gotta go.
Excellent. So this is considered by many to be a fan favorite, and it's not one of my favorite episodes. I don't know, how does it rank highly for you guys?
It's not, in my opinion, the same caliber as the rest of the episodes of season 3, but I like it. I don't hate it. I don't think it's meh. It's just kind of an odd duck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I enjoy the episode, but it's not making the top list for me. It beats Fraggle Rock, but...
Anything can beat Extinction.
That's a really low bar. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, it's not something I would put in my top things of that season, but I do enjoy it. And I enjoyed it when I watched it again. Because the actor who played Lorian, I don't think they could have gotten someone better physically to represent the mixing of DNA between T'Pol and Trip.
Yeah.
I think he was perfectly cast. I find it interesting, too, just because Degra, we don't get in touch with the Xindi again until the end of the episode, where Enterprise of our current timeline rendezvous with a Degra ship. And, Tucker Smallwood has been in many of these episodes, and he never got a name. He's just Xindi Primate.
Yeah. Well, he said in the interview that we did with him that him and Rick Worthy named themselves Deepak and Chopra.
Nice! That makes me so happy. I haven't listened to all the backlog of Warp 5 yet. I apologize.
Now we have a name.
Yes.
Yeah. So which one was Deepak?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
And he's just going to force you to go listen.
Yeah, you should go listen
That's
to
fine.
it. Episode 106. It's a great episode.
Yes, I have so many to get caught up on. So very many.
Right on. Well, should we move on to the council?
Let's move on to the council. So, let's start with you, Patrick. What are your feelings overall about this episode? What do you like? What do you not like?
I like that I hope I'm not messing these up. We do see the other beings more in this one, right? This is the one where they first start talking about the timelines being less favorable. Does that happen in this episode?
the Guardians.
The Sphere Builders.
So we start seeing them start to talk about how they can influence maybe the timelines and that they're becoming more favorable for the humans and not for the Xindi.
Right.
And this is when the council really starts to realize it needs to break apart. I mean, I know that they're trying not to sever the ties, but in reality, you have 3 versus 2 in the voting of the council, and there's really no coming to an agreement at all.
2 versus 2 versus one's half asleep.
They take like forever to make a decision on anything, which is obnoxious if you're going to be the one that everyone looks to.
Yes.
Well, Deepak or Chopra, I'm not sure which one, did say that their prudence had saved them more than once. We're not to that episode yet. But he does say in a later episode that their prudence has saved them from mistakes in the past.
There was some really interesting stuff here with the Xindi, and I'm excited that we're going to be talking about them as a race in a couple episodes. But, I mean, I'm really fascinated by this avian race that we saw, and like that skull that we see it's almost like a dragon's skull or something like that, right? And
I thought of it like a like sort of a winged raptor or a pterodactyl sort of skull is what I thought it was.
yeah, and like this area that they're in on this planet was built centuries before they became extinct. You know, and they've been extinct for a long time, right? So like it's this really neat area that they're in, and I really like the idea of this, and I almost wish we got some kind of a flashback episode or something where we could have seen the avians or maybe found out a little bit more of the Xindi species.
So yeah, the scenes with the council are very uncomfortable because, you know, we're the humans, we're viewing everything through Archer and Hoshi and just like, come on, just listen to us. And so just being really tense throughout the entire presenting of evidence, etc. And it's so frustrating because they have this reverence for the Guardians and they just can't grasp yet, not all of them anyway, that the Guardians are just using them. The Guardians only saved them to destroy Earth so that they wouldn't get destroyed in the future.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with the destruction of the Xindi. It had everything to do with the destruction of the Guardians, which seem primarily female. We saw that one male who was in that pod in an anomaly.
Right.
They were trying to see if he could basically survive in this universe for an extended period of time. And that's the only male we ever see.
Yeah, that was back in episode Harbinger. And
Yeah.
all the ones that we see from this point on are all female.
And I wonder why that is, and we'll never know.
We won't.
Or maybe there's books about it.
There isn't. None of the post-finale books really deal with the sphere builders at all.
Oh my gosh, I wish I was a writer. I would invent something.
Yeah.
Because there is curiosity for me in that. Is like, why did they want to come into this universe? Was theirs dying? Why all the females? Was it because maybe it's because they didn't have enough males and they needed to because then all the rest of the life would be extinguished. So I just talked myself out of my own argument. So.
Well, maybe all the males were just running around and throwing themselves in new universes and not surviving.
They're on Ryza.
And
yeah, they're all on Ryza. Yeah, because that's what a male's worth. Just, they managed to survive. Now they're going to Ryza. Well, the women are the ones who get stuff done, apparently, in this universe. But it's just, I don't know for sure their motivations for wanting to create their reality in our reality. What was the point of it? Why?
Because
they've been working on this for so long.
They're almost in a like an alternate dimension already, and they're just wanting to invade this. And I've often said that the sphere builders are almost like one plot point too many at the end of this Xindi arc. Like it's necessary, but it is almost a little bit too much. Because for them to be the driving factor of it, they don't really get involved until the very end. We had the one episode before, and we have had the spheres since the beginning. But I don't have the impression that they had that thought out. Oh, we got these spheres, we'll have these sphere builders. I don't like back in episode 2. I think was the first time we saw a sphere, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Like, do you guys get the impression that they had this planned out? That they had the sphere builders back when they started?
I think they were kind of trying to appease the network here because remember the network wanted to push this temporal Cold War on them early on, and they had some pushback, and that's why you had an episode here, an episode there, and it never really panned out early on. So I think this was kind of like a way of appeasing them. Okay, see, we have these time-traveling beings, and they come from another universe, and they're transforming space, and blah, blah, blah. And then I think, like you said, they kind of wrote themselves. Maybe they had some plan, but they kind of wrote themselves into a corner where they now had to throw them all at you at once, deep in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I feel like the spheres were always intended to be the source of the anomalies. I don't know whether they intended to have this trans-dimensional race or not, but it seems to me like it was pretty early on that we understood that these spheres were causing distortions and anomalies.
Right. I think they had that intended, but I don't think they had the sphere builders and they were using it to change the fabric of the expanse.
Well, it does. I actually think that makes sense in the end, because if you go back and look at all of the earlier episodes, well, there are these spheres. Obviously, somebody had to build them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree it makes sense. I just don't think they planned it out well to get to the point where they got. And I think
in
that's
the
why.
end.
Right, so at the end you kind of get this mass information about them, or these like mass sightings of them compared to the rest of the season, where there was really only the one little hint of the one crashing.
Yeah.
I thought they worked out well anyway, so it really didn't bother me. But I do see a point that they are one plot. They weren't fleshed out enough early on.
No.
So,
Yeah, where it just kind of comes suddenly all at the end, right?
Yeah. So I don't know exactly why it happened the way it happened. I probably should do some research about that for my own gratification to see if I can find out if that was an intention from the beginning and they just didn't explain it well, or if they just really kind of threw it in later in the season and it's like, okay, we got to hurry and get this done now. So I just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It'll be interesting to find out. If I can find out. I just don't know. Strokey beard.
And then we get the death of Dagra.
Oh my... I knew that it was going to happen, and yet it still breaks my heart every time.
He's such a great character. He's such a great actor. Randy Oglesby is amazing.
Oh, he's fantastic. And such a complex character. So rich with just details. Oh, I loved Dagra, and it just breaks my heart.
I mean, he's so good
murdered.
that he even gets tripped to feel sorry for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how good he is.
Yeah, it's often a question, like, do you think that... I think it's necessary for him to have died. Do you guys think it's...
Absolutely.
Yeah, you think it's necessary as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same... The season doesn't have the same impact if he survives it.
Right. Because he had his own little arc of him, developing the weapon and, coming to terms with it and not wanting to do it and finally becoming to trust Archer and being his one support. And then with him gone, that's that extra hurdle that he's got to get, Tucker Smallwood's character to support him and stand by him.
Yeah. And it's at that point that pretty much everyone else is on board once Dagra is killed and the insectoids and the reptilians have stolen the weapon. Well, except for the aquatics. They still need more evidence. But
the aquatics still don't care. They're like, well, that's your problem, not mine.
Right.
Like,
It's like, can't activate it. Oh, yeah? Well... Yeah, but that's also another episode, which we're going to talk about next.
Yeah.
So
yeah, right at the end of this, Hoshi gets kidnapped. So
yeah, this is why they need shields for Enterprise, because good grief, hull plating does jack and squat.
Oh, it's worthless.
Yeah,
don't even bother turning it on. You're just wasting energy.
Polarizing the hull plating. Let's just pull a blanket up. Anyway, I've already said that one.
Great.
Okay.
It's great if I'm throwing radio waves at you. No cell phone calls in this ship.
Right.
Nope.
Before we move on to the countdown there, so we have this side mission where Reed and T'Pol and them are going to this sphere, and they're trying to get like a bunch of data from inside the sphere, right? And Reed at this point seems really comfortable with the Makos now, right?
Yeah.
And
he and Hawkins have gotten their differences basically over with, because Hawkins is the one that goes with them to this, and basically when they're starting to access the database of the sphere, it triggers an automated defense system.
These spider-like things.
Yeah, very spider-like, and it just basically it grabs Hawkins and just disintegrates him like in an instant. And Malcolm is really upset about this, because he has finally come to respect the Makos, and someone's lost on his watch.
Right.
And he's just tired of losing people. And I like how upset he is and how he says, I think we're getting a little too comfortable with losing people.
Yeah.
That's a great line.
It is. It is. And it also breaks my heart because he is so visibly upset that there was nothing that he could do to save Hawkins. And there's just so much about this episode that breaks my little heart to pieces.
Yeah.
And I do get emotional and I cry every time that I watch this one. It is not very difficult to make me cry. But yeah, and Major Hayes is not very happy, of course, that Hawkins didn't come back.
Well, that's in the council. That's in the next one, yeah.
Yeah, but...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Or a countdown, sorry, countdown.
Countdown, yeah. So, but yeah, that whole thing about getting into the sphere, because they were basically going through an exhaust port. So yeah, and it was sort of what's the word I'm looking for here? Camouflaged as just part of the outer hull of the sphere, but they just passed right through it. And I thought that was so funny that T'Pol's just like, maintain your course, and everybody's like, but we're gonna, and then they just pass through it, and they're like, we could have said something.
You know, every time I watch that scene, I'm like, she couldn't just go, it's a hologram.
Nope.
Like she couldn't just say that word. She just, as they're arguing with her, she's sitting there. She goes, just hold your course.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Are you kidding me?
Wait
I would have
for it.
I almost died before we even got inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that it could be due to one of two things. Number one, she was playing a great practical joke on them. Number two, I really hope it's the first one. Or number two, her more emotional state was in a mood to test them, to see how well they would follow her commands in a pressure situation. But I really hope it's the first one. I hope she was just playing a joke.
Or she's just a jerk, yeah.
Or she's just a jerk, but I don't really feel like she was just doing it to be a jerk.
No, I don't think so either. But it drives me nuts every time I see the scene.
Yeah.
Come on, throw him a bone.
Reed ate the last slice of
wet
pineapple
his pants
cake.
over there.
Yeah.
Reed ate the last slice of pineapple cake. I'm mad at him, so I'm going to scare the pants off of him.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
And she made everyone else in that shuttlecraft pee their pants. I mean, it's just the way it works.
Yeah. So that was entertaining to me. But they do manage to get what they need, even though they lose one of them, and they can't get back to Enterprise yet because Enterprise has something else they need to do first, and it's like, we'll come back for you guys. And I'm thinking, dude, you need this stuff now. But yeah, that's just me going, making me wait. Are they gonna find anything that is useful? What? But they do.
Yeah.
Spoiler. So yeah, cliffhanger at the end of the council. Hoshi's gone. They don't know why. They don't know where. And shall we move on to Countdown?
You betcha.
Oh, Countdown. So this is where we find out the reptilians have decided that they're going to use Hoshi and her superior language skills to decode the third key to activating the weapon and being able to put it online and destroy Earth. And she even says, I'm not a cryptographer. So and they're like, oh, well, we have every faith in you. And of course she won't do it because, she's Starfleet. She's not going to help the enemy if she can help it. And so they say this very ominous thing is, prepare her for the treatment. We'll see that you're much more cooperative after our surgeons have had a go at you, basically. And it's like, oh, Lord, what are they going to do? But it basically is just injected with neural parasites. And I just thought, I was thinking of something much more horrifying. But she actually sold it very well when they were injecting those parasites. She made it seem like she was in severe pain.
Yeah, she's a good actress.
Yeah,
she is.
Even
much better than she gets credit for.
Even the scene when she's drugged, like working at the station, she plays it to a T.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
You know,
she commits fully, definitely. Which is why her performances, I think, just fly under the radar. But honestly, I think she's really good. I think her character is well played, and I think she should get more huzzahs for that. So huzzah!
She's definitely an underutilized character, and this stuff at the end of the season, the way she develops the universal translator for the Xindi insectoid language a couple episodes ago, it really shows how talented she is. But it's just one of those characters that they didn't quite know what to do with, because they wanted to go into the series with not knowing how to communicate with other races, so they would need to rely on her, but that really hampered storytelling ability, so they didn't, that kind of was a feature of Hoshi that came and went.
Yeah.
Her ability to be useful for being a linguist.
Yeah, and it's just kind of sad, because when I watched the series the first time, and granted I didn't see all of the episodes when they were first run, but I saw pretty much all of season 1 and 2, and I just thought, oh, is this going to be another episode where Super Hoshi saves the day with her language skills? But it really wasn't like that, because when I rewatched, she struggles and she works as hard as she can, and sometimes she fails. And there could have been so much more done with her. And I think were it to be a series in today's time, that much more would be done with her. Because just in the, 16, 17 years since Enterprise first started, there has been massive changes in the ways that women are perceived and what women want to do in movies and television, as far as actresses, what they want to do and what they can do and what they should do. So I'm just sad that she didn't get that chance to do more, because it's obvious from this episode that she's capable of it.
Well, even like right at the end of, it's not really the end of it, but it's actually kind of early in the episode, but when she's ready to jump off the edge of that bridge and kill herself to prevent her from finishing the code, like that's a pretty drastic action for her character to take, and they stop her, obviously, and I don't know, I like that scene a lot, because it it gives her character this added level of like, hey, I'm willing to make this ultimate sacrifice to protect humanity.
Yeah, she would. Her life against all the billions of lives on Earth, that would have been an easy choice for her to make in her mind.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart at the same time, because she knew they couldn't do this without her. And she also knew that eventually they were going to get what they wanted out of her without her consent.
Right.
And that was a choice she was willing to make. If she could save humanity that way, great. But she didn't manage to do it, and I'm glad of that, because I like Hoshi. Didn't want her to die. So, in this episode, good Lord, the aquatics come to a decision. Miracle of miracles.
Yeah, even Deepak, he's all like, whoa, that was fast. You're going to be kidding
really
me.
Fast. It's like been less than a day. Absolutely crazy. But I couldn't really tell how big the aquatic ships were, because I had nothing to compare them to. But when they catch up with the weapon and Enterprise comes out of the main ship's belly, I'm like, oh, that is a big ship.
Yeah.
That's like a dreadnought. I mean, that's freaking huge. But maybe they have it that way so that they have a lot of swimming room.
You would assume that a species that lives in water would need a lot of water, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise,
so
the water itself would become toxic very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, they would have filters, just like any air-breathing ship would have air filters. They'd have water filters.
True.
Yeah, but you don't pee in your air.
Well, maybe I do.
We all technically pee in the air.
Well, okay.
It just goes somewhere after we do.
It doesn't absorb into your air. Let's make that
right. Well, maybe
more
they
clear.
have special rooms where they do their excretions.
Maybe.
don't know.
I don't know. If I got my fish tank, I want the biggest one. It's easier to maintain, and
Yeah.
they're essentially fish.
Yeah, they're essentially. Well, they're kind of like.
Well, yeah, they're
like
really
whales.
essentially mermaids and mermen, but they act like fish. So the more water, the easier it would be to maintain the society, right, or the workings of.
Yeah.
I'm still baffled by how they use control panels, electric control panels underwater, but
I don't know. Maybe they have really good
Waterproof.
wire covering.
yeah, like life-proof cases for their phones. Like,
Yes, those are great. Actually,
They
I
are.
have one of those.
me too.
After one too many times of dropping my phone in water, I just finally got one of those. Hasn't been a problem since. And the thing that finally gets the aquatics to make a decision is that they've analyzed this information about the spheres and have determined that there are 4 that really control all the rest. And if they can damage or destroy one of them, it will basically set off a chain reaction, hopefully. This is all theoretical at this point.
Right. And shut down their whole network.
Yeah. And so Archer basically makes a promise that they'll shut down the spheres. And the aquatics say, okay, well, we'll help you now, but you better come through.
Right.
Well, Archer also asked them, did they tell you where you're going to live? Is it in the expanse?
Yeah.
He
And
said
that's
no.
the thing.
And that's
Are
what
you
got
gonna...
them to stop and turn around.
Yeah, where's your home planet going to be? Have they told you that? Because if it's here, your planet isn't going to live very long because those spheres are changing the very nature of existence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great scene because everybody's like, don't make sudden movements, don't raise your voice, be respectful. And Archer just gets really passionate and still manages to, still manages to be respectful and not yell.
He's a great negotiator, and this is building up to him being, I think, Apocrypha canon is like he becomes president of the Federation, right? And, this is showing his negotiating abilities, showing how he's going to help develop the Federation and how he's going to bring people together in season 4.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's very true.
Did anybody else think of the Borg vortex when the Xindi vortex came around?
Yep, I certainly did.
Yeah, like it's kind of the similar, like it's a transwarp hub almost.
Yeah, sort of a transwarp conduit sort of thing. Yeah,
Now
I thought that was.
Say it absolutely, but no. when I watched it, no.
Well, honestly, I didn't really think about it the first time through, but the second time through, I'm like, oh, Borg. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see similarities there. So, you have to wonder if that was technology that the Guardians guided them to. I wonder.
The Guardians are the Borg.
That's it! The Guardians are the Borg.
Tune in later on. We might talk about it.
Let's write that episode together. All right.
See, but the thing is that these sphere builders, though, like they must think of themselves as the guardians of the galaxy.
And now
you
it's Marvel.
stinker. You are a stinker, you are.
Sorry. No, I'm not.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not.
You're not sorry. And that's okay. It's okay to go ahead and make your joke and own it.
And own it.
Totally own it.
Well, we've got more death and destruction in this episode with the death of Hayes. Right after they have a heart-to-heart about how, they're responsible for their people and everything like that, and then he dies in the most amazing way.
Right?
Like, how many times have we seen the phaser go through the transporter? Like,
yeah.
What are there, 729 episodes of Star Trek? We've seen it happen, like, 728 times. Right? Like, it happens all the time, and then this time it's like, neat, because he beams out, they shoot him, and he's like, ah, and then they show the wound later on and everything. It's, like, awesome. I love it.
And it makes more sense.
Yes.
It does. It does make more sense. And of course, I hadn't actually seen these episodes when they were first running, so the minute I saw that, I'm like, ooh, he's not coming back from that.
Nope.
Ooh. And yeah, that was heartbreaking for me because I actually liked Hayes. And I liked the Makos as characters. I thought they were an interesting addition because basically Enterprise was going into what they considered a possible war zone. And so to have these highly trained officers was a good idea, really. And, it provided for some interesting plot lines and some interesting character development as well. And I was sad to see Hayes go.
Right.
And how he's saying to use his second in command. She knows the team. He's like, don't talk like that. Oh, man. It's hard.
Amanda Cole doesn't show up again, like all these other Mako that we've seen.
No, she does not show up again. Apparently, she had her fill of toxic masculinity and decided decided you guys aren't worth it. Bye.
Yeah. And then also with the Makos, it also has spawned the debate that shows up like once a week on every Star Trek message board on where the Makos went after the series ended.
Yeah, that's
good.
a frequent conversation.
Yeah, where did they go?
They became the red shirts. They just went to the security. That's what I think.
It's like the easiest way to just explain it away, and yet we have to talk about it like
they got
once a
absorbed
week.
into Starfleet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And now people are yelling at us in Babel conference.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Don't use too many exclamation points. That always makes me sad.
Anyway, before we move on to the next episode here, I'm a little hungry here, so I'm just going to eat a snack here. You guys want a mouse?
No,
oh.
thank you.
You guys want a mouse? Oh, so yummy. Squeak, squeak.
That was actually a really well-filmed scene. Because it was just like, oh my lord, he's really putting that in his mouth. Oh my lord. But, it cuts away just in time, but still.
How can we make these Xindi reptilians even worse? Make them gross.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we should bring up the fact that the Guardians basically prey on the reptilians' what's the word I'm looking for here? Vanity, I suppose, by promising them that they'll be the dominant species.
Right.
And their actions are even to the point where the insectoids are like, oh, no, I'm not sure that the humans were wrong now. And that's the end of the insectoids in the faction, so...
Which is interesting, because I always took the insectoids to actually be worse than the reptilians.
Yeah. Apparently
I
not.
To be even more aggressors and even more violent, but then even they're like, oh, Scott,
really?
He lost his mind.
I don't know if I ever thought that. I always thought the reptilians were the bad ones.
I thought the reptilians were much more conniving and felt very superior. And the insectoids were more like, yeah, you get him, big brother. So,
I don't know. I like the scene where he throws Archer and Archer looks at Hoshi and she's like, you don't want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote that down. I forgot.
We're on network television. We cannot repeat those words.
But in this episode too, I think it was in this one here, when they're talking and just the way that his arm points out at him, he's like, "No, you killed Dagra," and he's got that big finger.
Yeah. Yeah, you were the one who killed him, not the humans. Yeah. That was an interesting exchange. Not completely unexpected, because that's the kind of vanity and violence that I expect from the reptilians at this point.
Yeah.
Pride cometh before the fall.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Well, so when they went to do this rescue operation here, why did they only take 3 Makos? Why was Reed okay, I need 3 volunteers. They all step forward. He's like, okay, you, and you. You don't think they could have used 8 more?
I think it was to minimize loss of life. I think that Reed felt he was possibly sending them on a final mission from which they may not return. And he didn't want to expend his entire team on that.
Okay, so he's like, I need 3 of you. The rest of you guys peel potatoes?
Well,
Feet up in the mess hall.
I don't know. I think at the same time, if the reptilians can just beam anyone off Enterprise anytime they want, they could also beam people onto Enterprise. And what if they did do that and there weren't any Makos left to help defend them? So that's a tactical thing.
Well, then they got Phlox and his Pytherian bat.
And, polarized hole plating.
Yeah. Yeah, that blanket is really strong protection.
I'm hiding right under the bed.
Just see Phlox defending the ship.
I actually would have liked to have seen that now. That would have been a great deleted scene moment, wouldn't it?
I say, call him up. Let's film it.
Let's do it now. Yeah. It could be done. We could do it via computer animation now.
Yeah.
Recreate the characters that way. We could do it.
Right on.
Yeah.
I love the scene where Daniels takes Archer forward in time again. We get this reference to, these are the voyages. We end up following through on it with a bit, but he's like 7 years from now, this is when this scene is happening, and we see that scene again, right? So I don't know. I like that. I like that symmetry that we get throughout the show.
Yeah, that is nice symmetry. It's too bad they couldn't have built a better episode around that at the end.
Yeah. You didn't like These Are the Voyages?
I liked aspects of it.
There's a very simple fix that if you wanted that to be the last episode of the series, and the simple fix is don't put Riker in it.
Just keep Troy?
No, just have it be what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, just have it be them.
Just have the second to last episode, and then go 6 years in the future. Boom. And then we're fine. If it's not a hollow simulation, we're fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing with hollow simulations. It's like any other history textbook. They're never completely accurate.
Yeah.
Okay, but we got to save this for the next 7 episodes from now when we do the season 4 retrospective.
Spoiler alert.
We've probably said everything that we want to say about These Are the Voyages, but...
It's probably right. All right, so I guess we should do the last episode of this season first, right?
Let's talk about 0 Hour.
We have been. This is what we've been talking about.
More 0 Hour.
Shran!
Because it's like Shran shows up.
You had to bring him back for the last episode.
Yes.
Oh, there's always a good reason for Shran.
So, interesting fact about this episode, though, is initially they intended to actually kill off Archer.
Okay.
This was actually going to be his last episode, and then they decided, you really can't get rid of the main star of a show. It probably won't work.
And then they did Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So now you can get rid of everybody. By the way, you can actually just film a new cast every episode and have it be one continuous story somehow.
I don't think I knew that about them wanting to kill Archer, though.
Yeah, I forget where I read it, but yeah, they definitely wanted to kill him off. They wanted that he had sacrificed his life to finally end the threat on Earth.
Yeah.
And they thought, people might backlash against that, so film one more scene. He's alive.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on in this episode towards the end, but let's not talk about that quite yet. So yeah, it's do or die time basically, and we're basically split between 2 different storylines. We've got T'Pol leading the mission to destroy Sphere, whatever it was.
41.
41. And hopefully destroy the entire Sphere network in the process. And then we've got Archer and the Makos and Reed and Sato on their way to try and disable the weapon.
Yes.
And it's extremely tense on both of these storylines. And it's one of those things where, even watching it now when I know it can't possibly end badly because there's another season of Enterprise, it's still very tense for me to watch it, even knowing what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel the same way?
Yeah, it is, and I think it's the pacing that they've got of this final scene. Like they've divided it up really well, and I think that's what makes it so tense is the editing and the pacing of it. And it's this really neat shot of this red glow that's happening on the ship when they go into this area of space. You know, and the sphere builders, now they can come on their ship and be okay because there's a little bit of this atmosphere there. But, you know, you got the scene of them, like, putting their arms inside messing up whatever they're messing up, right? You know,
yeah.
The thing where it does that thing over there.
Right. On the thing.
The thing where there's the thing happening because the thing
the
they're trying to do, they're trying to disable the thing that Trip is doing. That's what they're trying to do.
Right.
On the what's it called?
Yeah. All that.
Yeah. Very technical here on Warp 5.
So technical. We're so good at this. We're the best.
That's the sound of us all patting ourselves on the back.
Sorry, I've got the giggles now.
So, in this episode, though, at one point, they're talking about taking out the weapon, but it would destroy the Enterprise, right? And am I missing this up? No, right? This happens in this episode where Trip says something about having that he would destroy himself or his ship, and he doesn't want to try and do that or whatever. And like it's not like getting through to him. It's like Earth or you, guy. Like Earth or you. Like make a choice here.
Yeah, he doesn't want to, and like you put the ship at that extreme danger, but T'Pol kind of forces him.
Right.
Which is the right call.
It doesn't seem like a hard choice to me.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
First of all, dude, like this thing killed your sister, so I would think you would, of all people, would be really quick to try and take it out at all costs, right? That was like what you said in the very last episode of season 2.
Yeah.
And now, a season later, you're like, we'll still have a ship. We can go, like, hang out on another planet, I guess.
Yeah, and it's kind of frustrating because it's not, T'Pol brings up the point that it's not just Earth that's in danger now. It's everybody. We're not just saving Earth. We're saving the galaxy, possibly the universe as we know it.
Yeah, she says it's also Vulcan and this and that. But, and that kind of sways him, but I'm from Earth. What do I care what happens to Vulcan? Like, I want to save Earth. That should have been enough for him.
Right.
That should have been enough for him. But T'Pol had to. I think she had to have her moment explaining the vastness of what this is going to affect now, because that was the problem with Malcolm, is that he was only thinking about Earth and thinking still about his own survival and the survival of his ship, because they've been through a hell of a lot. It's been hell for them for months, and to end up having to sacrifice himself, he's kind of at that point where he's just like, no, we've given up too much. We need to have a win here. But he's just very, very cranky about T'Pol's particular ideas.
Well, he was hungry. He was hangry.
That's it. He needed a Snickers.
Yeah. Why wait?
Yeah. He just needed a Snickers.
He was hangry.
Hey, you've never seen me hangry. It is not pleasant. I do and say things I normally would not.
I haven't had dinner yet.
Yeah, hanger is real. It is real.
Should we jump right to the end now with this?
Yeah, let's just jump to the end because, there's so much stuff that goes on. They're infiltrating the weapon. Shran comes to help with the battle, and yay, Shran!
And that's my favorite line of the episode. Shran's line where he goes, "Tell him we're not even, he owes me," is my favorite line of the episode.
Yeah, I love it. And I love how Shran is just so determined throughout this episode, because, towards the end of the battle, you're seeing him on the bridge and there's like flames everywhere, and he's just like cool as ice because he's Andorian. It's an ice planet.
Yes. Yeah. Jokes are just not landing today.
I'm so sorry. That wasn't
John
it wasn't a
Belushi.
good one.
John Belushi.
So a horse walks into a bar. I feel left out. I haven't given a bad joke yet.
Yeah, well, give it time. We're not quite done.
Yeah, true. I still got final thoughts.
Do you? Are your thoughts very final?
Very.
So final. Yeah, anyway, so whole thing, you can't go to the ship because you're going to start the Federation. I don't care about your Federation. I'm going. And the poor Hoshi trying so hard to tell Archer how to overload the reactor because it's not just enough to disable the reactor. They got to blow up the weapon.
Right.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And someone else will start the Federation, so that's cool. We fixed that problem. But yeah, we have to blow this up because we didn't come all this way to disable it. We made sure it's not going to blow up Earth. Mm-hmm. And then, he stays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course he stays because Archer does this all the time. And it's something we might talk about in a future episode, but he is Mr. Martyr. That Archer. He would rather do it himself and chance dying than send someone else to die in his place.
Well, just like Kirk.
Yeah.
We saw that a bunch with Picard, too, right? I mean, like, which one of the movies, the Enterprise flies over and pulls him out at the last second as the fire's ripping through the injector?
Insurrection.
That one. I should know that name, right?
Yes.
You should know that name.
The one that's in the Briar Patch.
That one, yes.
You really should know that.
It's like midnight.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, so holy schmuckamole, holy Nosferatu vampire Nazi.
Yeah, okay.
Nazi-feratu.
So...
What are your feelings about this? Let's start with you, Brandon. You brought it up.
The first time I watched this, I was like, F this, I am never watching this show again. Like, what is this trash? And of course I was there for the season premiere for season 4, but I'm like, what is this trash? I remember that, like, lots of people were talking, like, I didn't have a lot of friends and whatnot, but everybody's like, Nemesis had just come out a little while ago, and they're all like, are they Remans? What are Remans doing on Earth? Are they the Remans? And, like, yeah, and then they're not. They turn out to be the Uruk-hai or whatever they're called.
Yeah, but we will get to see some Remans in season 4.
We will. Yes, we will.
So my bigger problem with that whole ending of that episode was they can't get a hold of anybody, so they fly a shuttle back to Earth, and they're like, oh, look, there's other ships, and they don't notice propellers on them until they're being shot at.
That's your problem?
Yeah, it annoys me to no end that P-51 Mustangs are flying at them, and they're like, oh, they're friends. They had idea.
They'd have no reason to think otherwise.
Right.
I mean, other than the fact that it looks nothing like a space shuttle and has no nacelles.
Well, maybe their scanners were malfunctioning.
Yeah, it just
yeah, I got nothing.
So much. It bothers me so much.
It was
maybe they were delirious with joy that they stopped the weapon and they weren't thinking clearly.
I want to know when did they go back in time, because they came out of the Xindi vortex with the aquatic ship.
Yep.
So is there an aquatic ship in the past? Because
I just don't get it.
Yeah, or at what point did they travel back in time?
Oh, now you gave me another reason to really not like the last scene, because I never even thought of that.
No, okay. I did. I'm just like, wait, what? What?
Yeah.
So in my opinion, there's an aquatic ship that floated back the other direction.
And it can't. Did it go back through a time warp to get back to its own time?
Sure, they were way smarter than we were at the moment.
Just
that's a horrible loophole. That's terrible. I didn't even catch it. Thanks.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry to make you not like it more.
Sorry about that, but did you ever go back and watch North Star and see that one wipe?
Yes, I did. I did see the one wipe. Ruined that whole episode for me. Because the next time I watched it, I didn't watch anything that happened. I was just looking.
Where's the wipe?
For the wipe.
Where's the wipe? I don't know when they went back in time, but I mean that's always bothered me watching this. I'm like, what point did they go back in time?
So basically, we all agree that nothing from the moment they go back in time to the end of that episode really is any good.
It's weird.
It's really not.
The only positive is that Archer's alive, right? I mean,
yeah, it's just it makes no sense, especially as a cliffhanger. If you're trying to entice people to come back for season 4, why would you give them a WTF moment? And I'm not saying that as I'm saying that as a what?
Because people love killing Nazis in TV shows. That's why.
Yeah, so
especially
now let's get back
apparently Abraham Lincoln and Jesus were vampire hunters, so this seems perfectly logical.
I mean,
to me.
I just did a commentary with Zach Moore for Wolf in the Fold, and we're like, Jack the Ripper and Nazis are like the trope of all genre fiction. There's like a Jack the Ripper episode and a Nazi episode for like all space adventures. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There really is, though. I mean, it's true, and it's
bizarre.
It's easy to tell that story, and everyone knows who the good guy and the bad guy is instantly.
Right. Anyways.
It's just they try to make it so dramatic, and yet when you're watching it, you're just like, okay, wait, what? No, they did not come through all of this to have this be the next episode that I have to wait 3 months for.
Well, I heard that they did it to try and get the next season because they didn't think they were getting renewed, and like even at that point they didn't know, and so they left it with this cliffhanger. Like there's a show that I watched when I was a kid called Earth 2, and that show ended on a cliffhanger, and they didn't get renewed. It wasn't the greatest cliffhanger, but I mean, they didn't get renewed for their second season. They tried to get renewed with a cliffhanger, and then now I'm just angry 25 years later, right? So,
and at least Enterprise didn't do that.
They just left me angry and F this for 3 months, and
no cliffhanger, just a bad ending. So. They did it like shows like Lost.
What?
Just a bad ending.
Lost is an amazing ending.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're delirious.
An ending that I already predicted after watching half the first episode.
No.
Sorry.
You don't understand the ending then if you
'Cause
think that that's just them being dead.
We'll talk after this, but...
yeah, I don't want to talk about it here.
We're lost.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really bad last episodes, though, so it just started the trend.
Yeah.
Dexter was terrible.
Well, can you think
Seinfeld's last episode was terrible.
Yeah, can you think of one series that had a good last episode? Okay, besides
Sopranos.
Deep Space Nine, can you think of
TNG's
any other
last episode?
Okay, outside of Star Trek, can you think of any
Sopranos.
other
I
series?
know a lot of people didn't like the last episode of that, but I thought it was great.
Okay, outside of The Sopranos.
Outside of this and this and this.
Outside of any show that ended well, can you think of one?
No, there are a lot of shows that do not end well. It's like they don't know how to wrap things up.
No.
So.
No. Well, the worst part was that, especially for Enterprise, they didn't know they were actually. They thought they were being canceled in 3, right? But then they got renewed, and they thought they had 4 and 5 and possibly 6. And then they didn't.
Right.
They just had 4. So like halfway through, they were like, "Oh, we're going to give an homage to all these great characters, and we're going to completely botch it and make it look like they're just on a holodeck."
Yeah.
But it was a love letter. Again, we got to save that for the season 4 retrospective, because otherwise we're not going to have anything to talk about, which might not be a bad thing, but, you know.
That's okay. No one would skip that one.
So,
just like the
Stormfront happened, parts 1 and 2. Moving on to season 4, episode 3.
No, we'll talk about Stormfront next time. So,
no, I mean, as season 4 episodes, what this leads into isn't as terrible as how it got there. I don't think. I'm not saying good. I said not as terrible, because you guys are looking at me like blind stares, like I'm insane.
No, I would never look at you like you're insane. As I roll my eyes that
and
no one can see.
Hysterically.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Anywho.
Yeah, so that... Does anybody have anything else they want to say overall for these 4 episodes together?
I think I'm good. I think we're all done with the season. I think it was a good season. I agree. with what I said last time, and the previous block was the best block in the entire series. This did not hold up as well. It's a good ending, but that last block of 4 episodes was definitely the best block of 4 episodes, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I do feel like it was a satisfying ending to the Zindi arc. Just if they hadn't tacked on that additional ending, I think it would have made it actually stronger in that regard. But what do I know? I'm just a podunk who's been watching Star Trek all her life, so...
Yeah, I agree. I think they should have ended it when they came through the vortex, and that should have ended the episode. And then we should... I think it would have been better if the cliffhanger they wanted to leave you with was whether Archer survived or not. You know, that if they're looking for a cliffhanger, that would have been better. I also agree with you, Brandon. I've said it for every single block that this is the best block, and I won't say it this time. Last block was the best block of 4. More importantly, the best block of 3 by far in the season is in that last block. And
Hatchery's still pretty darn good.
But I love this season. This is my favorite season. So there's not many spots you can land that I don't at least enjoy the episode.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very, very strong season.
Fraggle Rock.
There's always an anomaly. So, well, it has been super fun talking about terrible cliffhangers today, but this isn't the only thing we've been discussing on the network. So here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, The Ready Room.
There's no one else in the scene. And Marino was talking, it's like, we couldn't even get like 5 or 6 extras. They were siphoning all of our extras money was going to DS9 to put more aliens on the promenade. Now,
yeah, all those extras were hanging out at Quarks.
That's right.
Because they knew, don't go to a Hutch Hutchinson party.
Stage 9, a podcast about the people who make Star Trek.
When I was a projectionist, I literally had a masking taped X on the bottom of my seat. And then when the seats were taken out and replaced with, new and improved seats, I was like, can I get that seat right there? So I do now have that seat in my living room right over there.
You live with a very patient woman, Mike.
Warp 5.
So I'm guessing that a lot of the interactions were probably about 50% fact and 50% dramatic license. So
okay, hold on a second. Are you telling me Hollywood's not reliable? You telling me I can't believe Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is not real?
Brandon.
Really? That's where we go?
Brandon, we need to have a talk right now.
Primitive Culture, a look at history and culture through Star Trek.
So that idea of nostalgia is very much describing people in the same situation as the Voyager crew. They're far away from home, they're wanting to get home. It's that kind of homesick longing. But maybe that's one reason that we see this kind of transition from in the early seasons, this nostalgia for this kind of idealised Earth that may or may not really exist anymore, to in the later seasons, the nostalgia is for the journey itself.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
So check out these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe. And Nazis. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, please be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and a written review. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, and most third-party apps. And you can stream and download the MP3 from our website or grab the RSS link as well. And just be careful when you're traveling via aquatic air, because you may travel backward in time.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, the listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to show and select Warp 5. That will come right to us, and you can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So, Brandi, when you're not chasing vampire Nazis, where can people find you on the web?
Oh, chasing vampire Nazis takes up a lot of my time. It's a miracle I can do this podcast. But you can find me on Twitter at Brandywine12, which is Brandi with an I, and it's a number 12, not 12 spelled out. You can also find me elsewhere on Trek FM with Live from the Edge, which is a live podcast done on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, the day after a new episode of Discovery drops. And also, I do a podcast with my husband Dave called the Dark Corner Podcast, which you can find on strangeanddeadly.com. And we look at things from a vampire Nazi sort of lens. I'm kidding. Maybe the vampire, but definitely not the Nazi. And there is much swearing usually from me, so don't have the kiddies listen to that one. So, Brandon, when you are not going back in time in the belly of an aquatic ship, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Shea. You can find me here on the network with new episodes of The Edge, which is our Star Trek Discovery podcast. And you can find me over on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom with a show called Good Evening, and Alfred Hitchcock podcast. And we're going through Alfred Hitch's films one at a time, and we now have our own independent feed.
Woot, woot.
Patrick, where can people find you when you're not eating mice?
Well, when I'm not eating mice, but even when I am eating mice, in fact, I pop in on the Babel conference. I share my snacks. It's cool. I don't.
Deep fried mice.
Yeah. Well, how'd you know?
That's the best.
It is little hot wing sauce too. It's phenomenal. Blue cheese. I share though. I don't hoard them. But other than that, you can find me at the Babel conference. You can find me on Twitter at MagicDrop5. 5 is the number. I'm sorry. Okay. You can also find me on the Briar Patch. That comes out every 2 weeks on a Sunday. And I'm not as busy as them. I don't do 12 other podcasts, so that's about the only ways you can get a hold of me.
Oh my goodness, I've got the giggles so much right now. And I'm never going to look at mice the same way. Or
me.
Yeah, they're tasty.
Or to Pat.
Oh my goodness. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you sticking with us, listeners, for this season 6 retrospective.
Okay, I got it. Season 3 retrospective, part 6. It's not season 6. I wish it was a season 6.
They canceled after 4, so what series are you watching?
Look, you just back off, Mr. Mice Eater. Just let me be.
I was going to make a joke earlier, Patrick. I was going to say to Paul the to jerk.
Okay. Someone has to read the Patreon part because I need to go to bed.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to do it. I'm going to calm down in a second and I'm going to do it so well. Okay.
To Brandi, read it to Patreon.
Damn you. Okay. If you would like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. And perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content. You're going to hear some of that. Producer credits and more available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a ton of money to produce, host, and distribute all of these shows each month, and we really appreciate any support you can give us. We hope you'll join us. We hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all of the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
And at this time, we'd like to thank our wonderful associate producers here on Warp 5, and we greatly appreciate all the support that they give the show, as well as Trek FM in general. Norman Lau, Floyd Dorsey, Mike Morrison, Tim Cooper, Justin Ozer, Mark Flessa, and Joe Saltzman. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your support, and we're grateful.
All right, guys. I'm going to bed. Please let me know if there's any other way we can screw up tonight.
Oh, no one did the keep calm part.
Oh, I'm totally getting... I'm not done. I'm not done. I meant for that part to be in the podcast because I was quoting Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
I'm tired, sorry.
So thank you. Thank you.
Keep coming, eat mice.
Okay, so thanks for joining us again, Boomers, and we'll see you next week. Keep calm and boom on. Yeah, it's not something I would put in my top things of that season, but I do enjoy it. And I enjoyed it when I watched it again. Because the actor who played Lorian, I don't think they could have gotten someone better physically to represent the mixing of DNA between T'Pol and Trip.
Yeah.
I think he was perfectly cast.
Well, what about John Belushi?
John Belushi.
Yeah.
We're all confused.
I don't know. Is it too late to make a joke? I don't.
Trip saw his father in the eyes, and he wouldn't have done that with John Belushi.
It's too late to make a joke, I guess. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Been a bit of a
I'm
long
so sorry.
night.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
I feel so bad now.
I'm gonna go cry.
Oh no! Oh,
He can't cry. He left over my whole "where you can find me on the internet" thing.
But that will be released for 3 episodes.
Shh!
Spoiler alert!
Shh! Do not confuse the listeners with your wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff.
We're going around in time warps.
We recorded 3 episodes podcast tonight, and they're going to be released in different orders.
And you can hear it in the podcast we're now delivering to you.
Yeah, sorry that you get the dregs at the bottom of the mug, guys. Oh, I'm so sorry. Anyway, so I find it interesting to just to